expecting LFM to come in guns blazing the way they did, so let's see how Gale Force does in the next one. The battleground of choice is going to be Sky Temple. This could be a choice for either team. Both of them do like it, but it's Gale Force who had the choice after losing the last game, and they chose first pick. LFM takes us to Sky Temple.
And this is where they picked up their first W.
It is.
Against Space Station Gaming, yeah. And it was kind of that, all right, look, we're struggling, but we know that we have it within us to come back. So this is actually a really good pickup for them. You know, they struggled a little bit in some other areas, but they knew how to come back. And that was the thing, is that when it came down to it, they were able to do it. We highlighted that when we came into this series. So it's definitely something for LFM to get this map pick. I think it's a huge advantage for them. When
in doubt in North America and you're on Sky Temple, you head to the boss. And that's where LFM started to make the comeback, right at 16. And it's not just that they know where to make those fights, it's that they are proactive enough that they're set up to take them as soon as they need. And I feel like that is something that is really important to highlight about this team, because this is one of our newer teams, and to have that foreshadowing and know exactly where they need to be so that they're there at the right exact time, that's something that's pretty cool to see for this younger roster. Gale Force Esports, though, when they played on this map, they played versus Simplicity, and it's where they had the storied stage dive that was completely blind. They were heading for that too, so I don't expect Gale Force to let up on LFM in the early and mid-game rotations.
Yeah, we didn't see the global from last game. Instead, we got Lava Wave, which, you know, kind of took care of a little bit of that. But, you know, we've seen Michael Udall do actually really well on Falstad, one of his comfort heroes, and it was something that they played on Sky Temple before. They also had stage dive, so they had a couple of global options. But I think things to consider will be the Hanzo. The potential Abathur ban will be coming out from one of these teams, I imagine. So there'll be things draft-wise, I think, that will look very different than what we saw in Game 1, and maybe a little bit better for Gale Force.
Now, we haven't seen Gale Force Esports play Hanzo yet, but LFM have shown their hand that they will prioritize him if they get the opportunity for that. We'll see if Gale Force feels the same. We said the same thing about Team 12, and then yesterday they did bust out the Hanzo in the last game of the series versus Tipo Storm. Game 2 with LFM Esports getting their second game win of HGC, and the last one to put them up one game in this best-of-5 series. It'll be Gale Force with first pick, first ban.
Saw Greymane in our previous set. Might see it again here, of course, having that high priority for both teams, but LFM obviously was a huge comfort for them in week 1. I figured the Abathur might be a little bit higher priority, maybe making it to second ban. We're coming right out of the gates. First ban.
For Sky Temple, this is a place where Gale Force is willing to play Greymane. So if that's the case and they have first pick, might see them prioritize that there. Let's see what what LFM wants to ban though, because Hanzo and the boss control, how fast he can take that, puts your opponents on a clock. Greymane seems to be what LFM wants to ban. Maybe feeling if they ban Greymane, they could still get one of the two brothers, Genji or Hanzo.
I think that's actually a good ban, because I foresee Gale Force going ETC with their first pick.
Okay.
As appealing as Hanzo and Genji I think might be, I almost wonder if they might just fall back to that old value of get Fury on ETC, who statistically had the highest KDA in North America last year on ETC, known to be aggressive. And if you go back to when Gale Force kind of had their first appearance in the pro scene, it was ETC that got them all the accolades back then. So I think there's consideration here for ETC. Instead, we finally see Hanzo for them.
First Gale Force Hanzo, but because he is so prevalent in the meta, it is safe to assume that everybody does play him. It's just a matter of how highly they want to prioritize him, if there's any strategy in being able to hide it. But at this point, the gloves might be off for Gale Force Esports, since LFM had that stunning victory in the last game. Genji still up, ETC for Figgy too. Played a great ETC in the last game. Look at Genji Uther.
No longer that second rotation of ETC Lucio. Might see it here, and we're still waiting for that. There were some cool stats from week 1 with
Never
that,
get to share it. You can just go ahead and share it.
Let's go ahead and share it. I'm cool with that.
All right, week 1, ETC Lucio. They had a 100% win rate when paired with each other, which is that North America specific, or that's every region?
That was EU and North America in week 1. They were It was 7-0. And during the first week, we had 21 games for Lucio, 62% win rate, but 7-0 when he was paired with ETC. In North America, 14 games played with a 64% win rate, so it's about the same. But again, the minute it was put together with ETC, 6-0, the rest of the games, less than 50% win rate.
Yeah, so Lucio definitely wants to be paired with ETC and gives him the peels that you would like. Obviously, the big deal for them, too, is that you've got the double knockback. Once you get caught by those two, you're pretty much going nowhere unless it's the place that the team wants to put you. And they'll get ETC. Gale Force picks him up. They also get Tassadar to pair with Hanzo. The Tass Hanzo has been sort of the theme for NA drafts this weekend.
It is, and I just don't know where this comes from. We haven't seen it in any other region so far. The Hanzo Tassadar gives you the double reveal. Tassadar kind of fits into that double support role, but he hasn't really done anything exceptional. We saw some really good plays from Fan, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't seem like the rest of the world is saying, hey, this is so strong that we need to use this. So I'm not entirely sold on it myself yet either, and Tassadar being back in the meta, I did not expect it, and I'm not sure that I wanted it back in the meta this soon.
Lucio was picked both Sky games for Gale Force, and it'll be the ban for LFM, though Lucio in general has started to fall off in North America. That's why we haven't seen the ETC Lucio yet. Could have been a potential there with ETC already grabbed. And LFM will say no thank you to that. Gale Force, Warrior is possible here. Solo laner also possible, but they need to get their own solo laner, so it might be more of a problem. Also could be some sort of backliner to go with Genji. You know, double reset can be really scary.
But
they have the 2 support, yeah.
With Tassadar being picked up, we saw the Zeratul picked up. That was the Dragonshire game. Do you think there's an outside shot we might see another Zeratul to go with the Tassadar? So 1, it's a denial. 2, it gives you wave clear. But 3, you kind of have that added layer of protection, and you can just throw a support in there, get playmaking potential, plus the Hanzo, who does a little bit of everything really well.
Just depends how focused on Zeratul B-Kid and the rest of Gale Force are, I feel. Are they willing to chalk up not only last game, but several games now as a loss with him? Not being able to get a win with him on either the Curse games. Do they feel like it's Cursed Hollow? They are going up against Uther. And have to be really careful, because if he gets hit by the stuns, and Li Ming and Genji are there to blow him up really quickly, and Dahaka as a potential to keep him there, I'm not sure.
Well, Malthael banned out. We know B-Kid's played that. Dahaka and Li Ming are other heroes he's played through the first week plus. And then Zeratul, we haven't really seen a whole lot else. Of course, when it comes to solo laners, we could look at Leoric. Sonya, we haven't seen Blaze yet, who is available.
I know, what's with that?
Saw a lot of it today.
I know.
Hello, Alex the Pro G.
Leo, all right. Yeah, having this super solid composition puts a lot on Hanzo to make sure that he can get the damage in, but what it does do is limit those double resets of LFM in the fights. And Karzim will help with the damage too.
Dragon Blade comes out, no sound barrier, you just hop in a bunker. Easy counter. Easy counter.
Doesn't give up your position at all.
You don't know where I'm coming out. I'm a ninja. Dahaka picked up against double support, you know, not exactly the high priority, but against Hanzo and Tassadar, that is quite a bit of spell damage. So the ability damage, the armor there for Anubrak does well. Hanzo, at level 7, does give you that armor reduction, which is overall armor reduction, so that can have a sizable impact there, but with Leo on the front line, it just doesn't feel, when you go Leo Tassadar, it feels like a slow, painful death. And with Hanzo, you don't necessarily have the burst blow-up style. You can land a few skill shots, reduce the armor, but he kind of falls in between a setup man and a finisher. He's kind of that middle man. He does a little bit of both in the right circumstance. And I really wonder about being able to confirm kills, and I think a lot of that might end up falling on Akafe, so expect to see Iron Fist and maybe him being able to kind of add that final punch to finish.
Right. I think that's very fair. I think it was sort of mandated based on how the solo laner drafting went, that they had the Malthael ban, but they didn't have a solo laner of their own. It was forced into the Dahaka, and they wanted to make sure that they had something that would nullify and make sure that the double reset wasn't too much of an issue. But that was a problem for Freedom yesterday, and they were able to overcome in the late game. So let's see what Gale Force can do now. They're currently down 1 game in the series as we head into game 2 on Sky Temple. LFM takes on Gale Force Esports.
LFM off to a good start so far. See if they can keep up the momentum, get a firm grasp on this series to go up 2-0 in this best of 5. Everything that they did, say post level 10 last game, looked really good. And I'd like to see them with this composition of a Li Ming, Genji, and Nubarak, use that global of Dahaka, maybe set up some early kills, see if they can be a little bit more aggressive here in the early game.
Yeah, their drafting these past 2 games has been very solid. Seems like they are putting more emphasis into the Uther, but that's something that we have been seeing more and more in other regions, especially in Korea, and about the same placement draft-wise as where LFM is placing him. So LFM coming in their 2nd week after losing 2 series the first week and showing that they are just as capable as what we saw from Heroes Hearth yesterday, which is making necessary adjustments both in the draft and how they're playing to make improvements and prove that they deserve to be here with the top NA teams.
You know, sometimes you go as Li Ming and you are so tempted to go power hungry against a lot of teams. Then you're like, all right, they got one big damage dealer. It's got the ability damage on the other side. I can't really do this. But again, looking at the fact that it's Hanzo, Tassadar on the other side, Li Ming can comfortably go power hungry and really add and amplify some of the damage as these team fights go in, barring, you know, you get that globe, which isn't as hard nowadays. So look for T to potentially put out some good damage numbers in these team fights to really get the blow-ups.
Both teams starting to set up for getting their Giants. Gale Force started them slightly earlier. We'll see if they're able to get too much done with that. LFM are working on their own. Not really in a position to start to invade or anything. Gale Force doesn't even really look like they're interested in that. They're just going to head up and get their bruisers really quickly too.
Yeah, they've done this in basically all of their games, is that the minute they're available, they'll instantly rotate from one to the other. Again, with a Li Ming Genji style defense, it does well to push with the Knights. I don't know if we'll see the same approach because they're sieging damage. Tassadar amps up more towards the later game. Hanzo as W doesn't really do too well in sieging, so...
The thing is, LFM started with the siege in the bottom lane. They nearly got a tower. And then sieging along with this, Gale Force really need to get these kills. They're going to get one on Figgy likely. They don't have Hanzo, and he barely makes it out alive. Just as Akafe is coming down, had he been here a little bit faster, probably could have dashed in and been able to give them that kill. But this is allowing LFM to be ahead of the curve when you look at the 2nd temple phase, having those towers down already, or at least the 1 tower, and doing a lot of damage, significant damage to the 2nd.
That one last heal there really made him get that little bit of armor, got him in there, swabs, eating a bit of damage, making sure to grab the Knight. If you are playing a Dahaka, grab that Knight, bring it into that tower damage. He gives that spell armor, get those turrets to get in there, help finish it, make it a bit easier to target. Obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of other threat, but if you do see that opportunity, good play there to make sure and make that a little bit easier for a click.
In general, when you see a team give up the siege in the bottom, it's getting the bruisers and then trying to get the siege up in the top lane, and Gale Force did get quite a bit of that done. Yesterday, a team did that and then went ahead and fought over the middle temple instead. So I wonder if Gale Force is going to fight here, but make sure they're prioritizing that top temple so that they can try to get as much damage done to that top lane, maybe even set up so that they can take out a fort there. Seems like that's what they're doing so far. They put Akaface up there, that is the support, so all the rest of Gale Force needs to be fairly cautious here around the siege. Just make sure that they're getting the poke in, but not getting caught.
If LFM wants to do this, you can actually see on the minimap Leorix, his icon is just rotating between mid and bottom. He went Neil Peasants, which gives him that extra extra damage, and it allows him to kind of double soak while the rest of his team kind of casually pokes and waits this out. If they catch Leoric in that rotation and then bring in Dahaka to take the team fight, they have an advantage. They have it right now. Leoric's now at the bottom. They're looking for a fight, just misses the tongue. But that is good shot calling by LFM. They're working to create those moments. I like to see that from this team.
But it was also just the right amount of aggression from Gale Esports. Now a power slide hits, the Aware in danger, Draded going after Tassadar. Dragon hits, connects, the heal is there from Akaface. Figgy comes around from the side. The shield is there to continue to keep Fury alive. Gale Force has been able to stall out just long enough so that they can try to take over this temple. The problem is they are fairly low in health. Akaface low in mana too. They're going to try to continue this fight around this temple.
They are. The Aware went back and tapped as well. Uther has some mana issues at times. There's a little bit there. They're fighting over the last few shots. Neither team really soaking at this point. They're just looking for a brawl right now. I think both these teams are getting what they asked for.
Yeah, B-Kid doing a number to Figgy with that Drain Hope, the slow too, making sure that he gets even more out of that. And that turns the tide for Gale Force to pick up the final few shots of that mid-temple. Thought Gale Force played that out really well. From the bruiser focus of the top lane to prioritizing top but stalling out mid just safely enough so that they could steal the rest of the shots away.
Gilly, we've got the Hanzo factor. This redemption was obviously completed at level 1, so you get the bonus damage towards minions, monsters, and everything else at level 4. Plus we have the cooldown reduction at level 7. If they try and make that play, that is a fast race that Hanzo is basically second to none right now. So if Temple, maybe you get Gale Force to get a little bit of an advantage, get 10, force LFM off, you get 1 pick here. You get that 1 pick, you get the Temple, you could rotate the other 4, get 10 on the boss. Things could snowball for Gale Force if they can make that happen.
Well, if that is the main play, first of all, Biggie needs to be saved.
He's got to be alive.
He's got to be the one that they protect. But if that's the main play, LFM should recognize this based on the drafting, based on that build too, should be watching for the boss, making sure that they don't fall too far behind, and they're doing a really great job of that so far. Use that global just as well as they did in the last game, and keep eyes on that boss at all times, knowing that that is a big selling point for the composition that Gale Force has.
Yeah, Gale Force not able to get the pick, and they ended up getting pushed back. He almost got the pick onto Li Ming there, did Biggie. Obviously with that quick auto attacks now, with redemption completed, making it really impactful. Level 10 picked up for now.
I would expect this to be a stage dive for Fury. We saw it on this map before. Gives them a global to keep up with the Dahaka. Even though generally that's been Leoric, who's been split soaking too, just gives them other options to make sure they're pushing multiple lanes. And there's a lot of different ways to interrupt a mosh pit, especially with Wave of Force.
Yeah, we're seeing on whether Entomb's going to be there. Li Ming has a blink with the teleport. Genji can jump. Dahaka can kind of hide, and Uberat can go. The only person that really gets locked down is that Uther. So I think he's definitely considering March of the Black King. It's kind of like a catch-22, right? Like, oh, I can't go Entomb because they have way too much mobility. Oh, I've got March of the Black King, but what if they just jump out of it? So it's kind of like, can I get more value out of one or the other? Where does that value lie? Is it just a matter of, can I get that extra damage in, which they desperately need with this composition? Or do I just try and lock somebody down and we focus target somebody as we see the big dragon arrow come out from Hanzo?
Do you have the preference? I would expect a lot of times you see March the Black King on Sky just because the boss point alone. And if boss is already an important factor to the composition that Gale Force had, that's what I would expect.
I think that would be a likely pickup.
Yeah.
It seems the most likely one. It gives you that extra power in that team fight that I think they're going to need. And, of course, the boss control. And if you've got Hanzo going into more of that boss race build, if you want to get through that, and if there is any contest there from LFM, which we know they're more than capable of after their previous series, it is something to definitely consider to really turn the tides.
Now, over on the other side, we're seeing a Divine Palm, no 7-sided strike. It's just been Divine Palm for all the Karazian players so far.
Wasn't last year a lot of 7-sided
yes,
strike?
It was.
Yeah, it was a lot of 7-sided strike.
Except Tiger JK.
Except for Tiger JK. I remember Dread was like, why are they not going Palm? And I'm sitting here saying, why are they not going Palm? And they're like, well, look what I can do. You know, a 7-sided strike was quite popular last year. Even in like multiple double support roles, but now solo support giving that protection. You have the double resets, as you alluded to, making sure to potentially stop one of those to keep the resets from happening. Definitely something it's way too hard to pass up.
Now we've just got to pause from a player, so we're going to wait and make sure that everybody is ready to go for Game 2 between Gale Force and LFM. If you're just joining us, LFM won Game 1 and looked really stellar in doing so. So exciting to see. This game hasn't broken wide open yet on either side. Both of them have been just making sure they're keeping up with rotations. The second temple phase about there too, and just hitting heroic abilities. Now, where the heck is Blaze in North America? Why haven't we seen him yet?
I think just the comfortability factor. I mean, Alex the Pro G we know is a grinder. I mean, whether he's on stream or off stream, we know he's a grinder. We saw him play it all morning, or at least my morning, all afternoon if you're on the East Coast, all night if you're in Europe, and it looked really good. And then, you know, we saw Wubby play it yesterday, really good play. A lot of those melees, those guys that have been on that role for a long time, they have that comfortability that it's like, all right, you know, how does this translate from another hero that I've played? And they've been on that role so long that I think it makes it a little bit easier transition. Right. And so we have seen a lot of role changes and stuff like that. Maybe we'll see it out of maybe like a Goku in the near future. I'm sure there's going to be some players that have an easier transition than others. And the fact that, you know, it's his first weekend, maybe you kind of see. We've seen some other regions are like, look, you know, we want to see how other people play this before we do, and then they can kind of tweak a little bit and tune it towards their liking. Yeah, there have been a lot of role changes for that role in specific fashion for North America, because so far it's been that solo laner who plays it. I kind of wondered if maybe this would be the first series that we see it for North America. Although it would be B-Kid that we would see it on. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility maybe that we get it from Fury. Fury does sometimes like unorthodox tanks, and he actually had a build on our website, which is playheroes.com/esports, where he talked about the hero and where the hero thrives. And I thought one thing that was really cool was he was talking about the talent diversity and how diverse the talents were. And even in the builds that you've seen between all the Blaze players so far, there's been quite a lot of diversity. So I'm looking forward to our first North American Blaze, but how about that spotlight of Maev yesterday, too? She looked so cool. Ability-wise, just looking at the abilities, it's pretty terrifying. Yeah. Everything looked really smooth, really cool. Thematic, I thought, was really, really interesting. It's, you know, when I see a melee assassin like that, actually, do we know if she's an assassin yet? I need to look, because I think she's up on the page. She kind of looks like it. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine that would be the case. Like, I instantly think, like, I want to wake up one morning, go to Twitch, and then see Rich from KSV Black on that. Yes. Just see what he can do. As we've got what we can see on this side is Draded going in with Genji on the Dragon Blade. D-Shield is out despite not taking any damage, but Biggie in return here, Gilly. That cleanse was just beautiful, but Anubarak was too low. Now B-Kid about to fall, but they keep him alive, even using the palm. With a wave of light coming out, that might have just about procced it, but it didn't quite do that. And still Fury finds another target, and the team brings down Li Ming at Gale Force, a 2-0, and they'll claim the Temple. Oh, boss first. Yeah, first things first. When you got Hanzo, this is kind of what I expected maybe pre-10. You know, Uther, Anubarak is back up. Li Ming in 5. Yeah, March of the Black King, as you had anticipated, was picked up, so just no way to contest this. There's a camp pushing top. That has to be responded to. Temple will soften up this bottom. And this is something that we saw in a match yesterday with Heroes Hearth, where they kind of overplayed their hand a little bit. They pushed a little bit too far forward towards the keep wall. They had the boss, while the Temple was still up, and they overplayed it. I want to see Gale Force have a little bit more neutral approach, get this down, let it push, and then rotate mid. Like most other pro teams at this point will instantly rotate mid and try and get the clear. You can keep the pressure up in the bottom lane, but pushing down the bridge of death is troublesome. You rotate mid, you get max value out of the Temple, and then you really start to open this map up, and it looks like they're going to make that point here in place. Yeah, just make sure that they can get almost all of the forts down. Those final few shots will be fired, and that top fort is pretty low. So with that all but dead, and B-Kid is there to make sure to seal the deal, take that out. All forts down on LFM side, just with one brilliant team fight. The setup with the top earlier on, the focus from Gale Force playing in wonderfully for them as they go up 2 levels, and the bigger deal on Sky, which is structurally. Yeah, and that's the part that you like to see from your experienced teams, is to make sure that the boss is not an end-all, be-all type of scenario. You don't have to push down. So they ended up, at the end of that, Gale taking down all 3 forts with just those 2 picks in the temple. That's a lot of value out of that. So really impressed there with Gale Force. Let's hopefully they can keep the pressure up and not slip a little bit as they did in their last game, maybe even a series up.
Yeah, what that does do is make sure by focusing on getting all of the forts that they still get max value out of temples, and they're not locked to any specific certain temples right now. Obviously, bottom would be great because that is the boss lane, but sometimes you get in the situation if you would push with a boss like that, not only the Bridge of Death, but you set yourself up taking down some keep towers, but then if the temple spawn doesn't favor you later on, you can have trouble actually getting the opened up area that you would have ideally liked as a win condition for you. So in this case, Gale Force playing to the map really well, but 13 is now here for LFM, which gives them an opportunity maybe to find that team fight they need to get back into this.
Right now, I think the big play for Gale Force, keep ETC in that top. Keep the top lane neutral, make use of your global, send the rest of the team bottom. It's a 1-for-1 temple, and it's very far apart. It's not like the top and mid to where you can rotate from one to the other. They keep that global value. It looks like they're going to keep the global at the bottom, but as you said, playing the map, a trade heavily favors Gale Force in this instance. Just simply trading that after you've already taken down all 3 forts. I think the reason they're considering the bottom is simply because that is the boss lane, and the temple prioritizes the closest lane that it is. That bottom temple would focus the bottom lane, and then potentially a boss after that in a few minutes would get you that win. I like the response from LFM. They recognize they need to take a team fight, but right. ETC also has been playing in fog. Gale Force making a lot of right calls here.
Yeah, LFM didn't have the same option of just going for the straight trade. They looked for a fight somewhere. Gale Force wanted to get those bruisers to make sure that they were getting multiple things done at once, but ETC playing smart wasn't a good option really for LFM to try to catch someone out, and now just having 16, they have to be happy with whatever they can get. They quickly moved to the mid temple, got about half the shots there before they have to move off, because with stage dive, ETC can show up. They know that's stage dive. They know that's ETC down in the bottom. The best thing they could hope for is that they bully him off of that, just take the rest of those shots, and look towards 16 for the next opportunity for a fair fight.
Well, Genji ended up going down to the bottom, and Hanzo, obviously with the mega clear here, is pushing in with Leoric, and now LFM not able to find a team fight pre-16, now has double Knights pushing in, and this is a troubling part to be a part of.
Yeah, this is something that Gale Force themselves felt the wrath of from Team Freedom, the double Knight camp in the top lane. It's going to be a place where they could push in pretty well. They have those Psy Storms, the double Psy Storms, now with Psionic Echo.
I think we might get a stage dive here. Really just kind of push it. There it is.
Biggie gets out of the way, but still gets hit by the slow. Trying to clear this out as best they can. Keeps about at half health. Fury and B-Kid being that strong front line up in front, the rest making sure to hide so that they don't fall victim to any of the skill shots. For T, Leoric the last to bail out. With his Wraith Walk, Gale Force gets the first keep.
Well, Gilly, one of the comeback mechanics in this game is the good old throw pit, which is about 10 seconds away. That's the boss. Hanzo and team obviously have the superior race. Gale Force, we have a top and bottom temple. They don't have to fort. Oh, that blind power slide in.
Arrow, Divine Shield. The save is there. This is the exact same time of the game that LFM made a comeback on Sky Temple versus Space Station Gaming in the exact same place.
The only way you lose this game is by throwing on the boss.
Oh, it's so fast. Those Giants are slowing down LFM a lot. They're not in any sort of position even to take this. They didn't have, that was the difference, is that LFM were on the cusp of 16. They hit 16 as they hit the fight, and this time it was a lot slower, but also Gale Force took that boss way faster.
Hanzo,
turns out he's pretty good at that.
Pretty good is an understatement. As he just annihilates that. 2 keeps up, boss pushing bottom. Gale Force, they can make so many plays happen at this point, Gilly. They are electing to push in the mid. Does open up the opportunity for a team fight, which is a mistake by Gale Force. This is a problem.
Yeah, Karazim went down, but so did Draded. It's a 1-for-1. Fury slides in after the stage dive, trying to make sure that they could save Tassadar out of the cocoon. The Aware now, the one who's being chased down. swabs and the aware get hit by the arrow from Hanzo, and they take out Li Ming.
I think this should be game. Like, we have a boss that should still be fairly healthy with the Giants behind it. All right, not as healthy as I had imagined, but 2 members down, a 3rd keep. I mean, no matter how you look at it, this is an impossible mountain for LFM to climb.
Yes.
We see Tassadar already falling back to go towards the top temple. The temple is now just going to go directly to the core. Gale Force has dominated this game. Gilly, I'm looking at the kill count and thinking, man, did it really come in the kills? It's 4-1. They just put on a clinic in rotations.
Yep, that is what they do on Sky, it seems. They can leave it up to the temples. They head to both. They start that up. This will be GG's for Gale Force Esports, tying up the series on Sky Temple.
One of the more anticlimactic endings we have here. They took the team fight there as they ended up getting the trade. March of the Black King just going to go in and have a little bit of fun. You know, it's a formality at this point. The stage dive in catapults would have finished that off either way, but Gale Force comes back much better. Did not stall this time around.
Yeah, it almost makes me think that it's something to do with Cursed, whether it's drafting, just Cursed in general, something to that effect for them. I thought maybe that it was one of the favored picks for Gale Force, but we definitely know that Sky Temple is, and that game shows why. Gale Force looked really good on that. They played to their strength, they played to their shot calling, and they played to their compositional strength of having that Hanzo.
Yeah, there was, and the Hanzo pick for me was kind of the main thing. It was leading into the second temple phase. I was saying, look, if they get 1 pick, maybe 2, they instantly just take off on the temple, go directly to the boss, and then snowball from there. About 2 minutes later, they get the 2 picks in that team fight. They snowball from there. And it wasn't just a matter of they pushed 1. They knew that they got a little bit of damage in, fell back to the temple, used the rest of the team to rotate up to the top, had the camp pushing top. And they put all the pieces in place. Once you execute that, everything just is compounded at that point. It makes it look even stronger. They built a 2-level lead, and they were able to control every rotation after that. And it was off 2 picks. That's all it takes. And once the Hanzo is in play, you take that boss faster than anybody in the game. And it's over. And at that point, Gale Force, unlike in Game 1, knew how to close it out. And that was the experience that they had that really showed on that.
Yeah, that one play of getting all 3 forts at once. Gale Force still had every single fort left by the end. So that just shows how powerful of a play that was. And that ties up the series. Gale Force and LFM are 1-1. After the break, we'll go into Game 3. Stick with us.